Hello and welcome to another Digital Dimensions CAD-cast. My name is Maurice Cherian. Today I'm going to be showing you what's new in 2013 for parts. I'll get started with the agenda. First I'm going to be going over the enhancement for Cosmetic Threads. Now you can dimension thread depth by a face or a plane. Next I'll be going over how you can highlight solid and surface bodies and cut lists and solid body and surface body folders by selecting them. Next I'm going to be going over how you can link a defeatured model back to the original fully featured model. Next I'm going to be going over how you can now in mass properties override the moment of inertia and also show you the center of mass view and the center of mass reference point. Next I'm going to be going over some of the enhancements in the part reviewer. Then I'm going to be going over the ability to create a multi-body library feature. Before it had to be a single body part to create a library feature. Next I'm going to be going over how you can show a hidden body, very similar to the same command called show hidden components. Now there's a show hidden bodies at the part level. Next I'm going to be going over how you can quickly switch from one configuration to another by storing data sets, basically loading them into memory and being able to switch configs quicker, not having to wait for them to rebuild. The final thing I'm going to be showing is how when you transfer custom properties over, especially into a weldment part, the custom properties get propagated into the weldment part as cut list properties and they are organized correctly. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you the enhancement for Cosmetic Threads first. So here's my part, and this part here has a plane. I'll turn it off for now. So some people have a little trouble when there's a chamfered edge trying to show a cosmetic thread, and it's hard to always get that dimension correctly. So under insert annotation here we can see here's cosmetic thread. So when I add a cosmetic thread now there's some new functionality under blind depth here. I can now say start from face or plane. So I'll pick my edge to set the direction and the orientation, but here's now how you can actually dimension to a face. So I'm going to pick that surface there, and now you can see what it's going to look like. Now when I accept this, what's happening now is now the dimension for that cosmetic thread isn't started off of this edge here, it's actually off of this face. So this face now is what determines that dimension placement. Now I had that plane there too, so here's that plane. I can go back and edit this feature again, and instead of using the green face, I will use the plane to set that dimension. So if I move the plane around, you might use this for maybe a counter bore type of situation. The reason why that's nice is because there was some challenges sometimes with having this dimension moving around or not always working right with the chamfered edge in the mix here. So you can see it's that dimension or that thread is staying in place. Alright, so now I'll go back to the slides. So the next thing I'm going to show is highlighting related bodies or surfaces in multi-body parts. So that means you can actually highlight in the solid body or surface body folder or cut list item folder. You can see the actual bodies when I highlight them or select them in the graphics area. They highlight in the bodies folder. So let me show you that. So this is a first example, just a real simple example. Now when I select one of these bodies here, you can see first off I have 6 bodies. So when I select them now it doesn't just show the feature, it shows the highlight of the actual body in the solid body folder. Again, it works with surface bodies and the cut list items. So you can see it picks the right one. Now what was a little bit more challenging for people is when you have something where it's not always that intuitive to tell which feature created the body. So if I click on this, all these letters were created with one extrude, but you can see it highlights the extrude, but now it also highlights the body in the folder. Now this is a simple example. Now where it gets a little more challenging is when you have a weldment, and I'll expand out the cut list. So when I pick one of these bodies, the nice thing is it actually highlights the cut list item folder, and then now once I expand it, I can see there it's showing the different bodies here. So it does help a lot when you start having more complicated multi-body parts. Again, it highlights the cut list item folder, and then you can see it's picking the correct body there, not just the feature now. So this functionality helps you to understand which body you're working with in the feature tree. So the next thing I'm going to show you is the linking of a D-feature model to the original. So if you update the fully defined original model, the D-feature model will automatically get updated so that you don't have to worry about the changes made to the original having to be propagated back down to the D-feature model manually. So I'll go back to SOLIDWORKS to show you that. So here's my model. I maybe don't want to show all of the internal cavities and internal features. Maybe want to not show all the intellectual property. So I'll go to Tools, and here's the feature. And it's actually remembered some of the things that I was leaving out from last time, so I'll just go ahead and keep those same selections. And it's going to ask me what I want to keep. It's going to ask me what I want to remove. And once it updates, you're going to see now there's going to be two windows. The one on the left here is the fully featured model. The one on the right is going to be the one where I'm going to be showing some of the things I'm going to leave out. And you can see it still remembers some of the things from before. So I'll take a few things back out of here. So once I select the next button here, this is when it's going to update, and you'll see the preview on the right will show what features are still going to show up in the D-feature model. Now once this is done, you'll see now here is the new functionality for 2013. Save the model as a separate file here. Here's the link to the original. I'll go ahead and say OK. And I'll save the file. I'll close the file out. This file I'll save. I'm going to go ahead and make a few quick updates to this file. Now I'm going to add a few features to this model. I'm going to add an extrusion to the front here. I'll make it big enough so we can see that. And I'll add a cut back to this belt cover here. I'll save this model now. Now I'll go open up the D-feature model. Now here, over here is a D-feature. There's a D-feature item in the feature tree, and now there's a new button here, Update D-feature. This will add the new extrusion and the new cut. Once I click on this, it'll update it from the parent model. And now you can see it added the extrusion and the hole to the D-feature model. So let's go back to the slides now. Now I'm going to show you mass properties and parts. You can now override moment of inertia, not just the weight and the center of gravity, and create a center of mass reference point. So I'll go back over to SOLIDWORKS. So I'll go to Evaluate. Here's mass properties. They've changed some of the orientation of some of the buttons here. They moved the help, and they added this copy to clipboard. Instead of saying override, before it used to say assign, now it says override mass properties. So before you could override the weight if you wanted to, and override the center of mass. But now the new thing you can do is you can override the moment of inertia, One example might be that you simplified a model that's an off-the-shelf purchase part, but you still want to have the correct moment of inertia in here. So you can change that now by just hitting that override, and I'll say okay. It's going to ask me about setting the orthogonal vectors here. So now if I look at this, overridden mass, overridden center of mass, and then the moment of inertia has been overridden. So you can override that now. There's also a center of mass feature you can create. So if I wanted to, I can also take out these overrides here. I'll just reset it back. So I can create the center of mass feature here, or I can do it outside under insert reference geometry. Here's center of mass. Now here's this center of mass feature, and this is going to be a moving target, and when I extrude something here, you'll see as I add material or remove material, you'll see that is a moving target. It will move correspondingly as the geometry changes. Now the thing that's neat is you can also add, if I right click on here, I can add a reference point. So I'm going to add the center of mass reference point, and I'm going to go into my sketch over here on the corner and just show you how this works. Here's the center of mass feature. I'm going to turn that off, and here's that center of mass reference point. This one is stationary, this does not move around, and this one I can dimension to. So I can make driving dimensions off of this. I can't do that with the center of mass feature because that is a moving target. They don't want you to create circular references. So that reference point can be used, and I'll make an extrusion here. Now what you'll see is the center of mass reference point and the center of mass feature there are the same, but when I go in and unsuppress that, you'll see now it's pulling away from that reference point. So that reference point is set in time, whereas the center of mass, the feature, is always going to update accordingly. So you can see that even that reference point's changing because that reference point was created, in this case, after this feature here. So you can see they're moving here, and so the order does make a difference, but you can see how if that's extrusion is not there and suppressed, you would see that feature sitting right on top of the reference point. Alright, so some cool new functionality. The nice thing about this is that if I make a drawing, I'll make a quick drawing of this. The center of mass feature, you can't create it in the drawing, but what you can do is if you've already created in the part, you can always just go back to the part in here and you can just say show, and now you can see there's the center of mass there of this model. So I'm going to go back to the slides now. The next thing I'm going to show you is go over some of the part reviewer enhancements. Now this is something that if you ever wanted to look at some examples of parts that have part reviewer notes in them, comments, you can go to the SOLIDWORKS forum, and if you log into your customer portal, there's some example models there. So the part reviewer has some enhancements, and some of those enhancements now are it shows the sketches. You can hide and show features from the part reviewer dialog box. You can have it so that the features don't show if they don't have comments. It also has the ability to show the sketch information while you're basically playing the model through the reviewer. So let's go back to SOLIDWORKS. So the example I'm going to show you is an example of a wheel here, and there's examples like this, very similar to this on the forum. So first off, how do you turn on the part reviewer? It used to be under add-ins, now it's under tools, and here is part reviewer. It shows up in the task pane, so I'll push pin this. So some of the new functionality is you can do a date stamp, you can edit, you can say show only the features with comments, you can say show the sketch information here. So it used to skip through some of the sketch information. So I'm going to hit play forward. So if you never use the part reviewer here, I'm going to jump back to the beginning. So what this does is it plays the model, and as I'm playing through the model, and it shows the comments here in this window, and you can see here's the name of the feature. So now you can go in here, you can edit the name of the feature. You can also click into here with the pencil, and it lets you edit it. I can add a date stamp in here if I want to, and so you can add information in there. Also, as you're stepping through it now, one of the features here, you can see here's a sketch. One of the features here is a boundary surface. So as I toggle through this, it shows the associated comments here. And once I get to this one feature that's a boundary surface, it'll actually show the sketch information. So here's the boundary surface, and here's one of the sketches. And then if I play through it, you'll see the second sketch. So both the sketches show up here, and then once I click through it again, you'll see that now you can see the two sketches that were shown create that boundary surface. So next to the pencil here, you can hide and show features now. You can, when you edit this, you can actually edit the name of the feature too. You can, when you go into edit, you can add the timestamp. Now when people use this part reviewer, they use it for, some people use it for training, some people actually use it for collaboration. You can click in here and put a timestamp, and you can say things like check, tire, and valve stem clearance. So you can actually put in here information that other people will look at, and so when I hit save, you can see now it's in there. Now I can hit this button and say show only features with comments, and so as I'm toggling through, it'll only show those features that have comments. So this could be used as a collaborative tool, not just a training tool, so that you can make sure that people create parts with the right design intent. Alright, so I'm going to go back to the slides now. So one of the next things I want to show you is the ability to have multi-body parts used for creating library features. Now you can use a multi-body part to create a library feature. Some people use this for making multiple plates to show in a weldment. So my example, I'll go back to SOLIDWORKS now. My example is just going to put a multi-body logo onto a part here. So I'm going to go over to the design library in the task pane. You can add file locations and add directories. I'm going to go ahead and just use a location here under features. Here's this logo that I made. It actually has 3 bodies on here, so you can see what it looks like. I'll zoom in a little bit. So when you bring in a design library feature, it's asking me to pick corresponding edge to here, and I'll select that one. Corresponding edge again up on the top, and it'll place this. And now what's nice about this is that you don't have to recreate the text, and this is, all these bodies are all tied together, so you can see you can move them around. Now if you ever wanted to make a library feature, all you have to do is just push pin the design library and drag a feature over here. Once you see the plus sign, that means it's going to start to create the library part for you. So multi-body support is now available in 2013 for library features. So I'll go back to the slides. So the next thing I'm going to show you is show hidden bodies. This is a nice one because sometimes you'll have a lot of bodies in a multi-body part, and it gives you the same functionality as the show hidden component command. So let me go back to SOLIDWORKS. Now here is an example of this body I showed before, this multi-body part. So it's got 6 bodies. Now if I hide a few of these bodies here, now what happens is when you right click, you can see there's this show hidden bodies command or feature. Now this is just like the show hidden components in an assembly. I'll click on it, it invert selects. If I pick on one of these, it unhides it, it shows it again. And if I close out of it, now you can see that's turned back on. Right click, show hidden bodies. Now once I select that, it turns it off. I can hit exit or hit the X button, and now everything's turned on. If I right click again, that button is gone. So something has to be hidden for that button to show up here, show hidden bodies. So let's go back to the slides. So the next thing I want to show you was configuration switching, smarter configuration switching. You have the ability to mark a config to save the data set, basically save the rebuild information loaded into memory, so that when you switch configurations you don't have to wait for it to update the model. So you can actually have it save the data so that the rebuild data is available when you first open the model. You can tell it to save it when you close the model out, or you can actually purge that information. So I'm going to go back to SOLIDWORKS. Here's a part that has, in this case it has 3 different configs, and the green checkbox means that the data set is up to date. It's loaded into memory here. Now the minus signs means they're not up to date, so when I click on them and want to show them, it's going to take a little bit of time for them to update. Now you can see the green checkbox. Again, you'll see it takes a second for it to update. Now this information, that rebuild time, I could make it so it automatically caches that, loads that data set into memory. So if I right click here, I can say add rebuild or save mark. So I can tell it to save that when I save the model out. It's going to increase the file size, but now if you switch between configurations, it'll change them quicker. Now when you right click up on the top here, you can see under rebuild, save mark, you can say add mark for all configs. Or I can come in here and I can say, you know what, let's remove it and purge all that information. So if you don't want the file size to get too big, or again, you can just pick one of them and say add rebuild, so that it'll save that information, so it'll save that data set. That's just a little bit on configurations. We're going to do, you'll see another CAD cast on more on what's new for the configurations in 2013. So let me go back to the slides again. So the last thing I want to show you was transferring custom properties. So when you transfer custom properties now, especially if you're working with weldments, it's a little bit more intuitive. In this case, when you're working with the weldment part, if you insert a part into a weldment, it'll actually bring in the cut list properties, and it'll bring the properties in there and organize them correctly and put them into the cut list properties folder so that you can show them in a cut list item, a cut list table. So let me go back to SOLIDWORKS. Here's a weldment part, and I'm going to go ahead and, if you've never done this before, you can insert a part into another part. So I'm going to bring in this part here, this footing part. So before I do that, let's go ahead and open up that part so you can see what it looks like. So in this part, under File Properties, here I got Description, Material, Plain Carbon Steel, and Vendor. I got DDI here in the vendor. So standard footing plate is what I call the description here. That information will come in and show up in the cut list items here. So I'm going to go to Insert Part, and now you can see your solid body, surface body. Here's the button I want to make sure it's turned on, is Custom Properties. So I'm going to turn that on, and now it's going to ask me to mate this part up, so I'll go ahead and add some coincident mates here very quickly. So now I've added that part here so that I can mirror it over to the other the other three legs. Now first off, I'll go in here and go to update, and now it added a cut list item folder for that. So if I go in here to properties, you'll see the cut list item. Here's the properties, and now if I go to property summary, you can see it actually shows for the description. It shows that in there under cut list item 29. Here's material, and here's vendor. So it puts all that information in there correctly, and it organizes it in the right spot. Thank you for watching this Digital Dimensions CADcast. I'm your host, Maurice Cherian. Look for more webcasts and tech tips on ddicad.com.